Welcome in, everybody, to the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnard, and I am just a local guy talking about the teams that he loves, and that is Boston sports. And for all the bashing that I do for the Red Sox, I just want to get this out of the way first. Don't ever say that I'm not a Red Sox fan, okay? Because I have been cheering on this team since I was a kid. But before I get into the show, don't forget we have Boston Sports Summit merch. The link is in the description below. We have everything from t-shirts to hoodies to mugs. We got everything. Women's, men's, kids, you name it, we got it. So go check it out. Link in the description below. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell all your friends about this show. If they love Boston sports, even if they hate Boston sports, tell them about this show. I bet they'll get a kick out of it. And please don't forget to follow and share all the social media content you see below. I am on Instagram, Boston Sports Summit. I am on X at B-O-S Sports Summit. And then you got all the clips up on YouTube for the Boston Sports Summit, as well as going live on the Grid Network every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I do want to get into the Red Sox. Opening day is next week. They already announced who their starter is, and a little interesting fact about their home opener, but that will come up, as well as we got the Bruins, okay? They're making their playoff push. There's a lot that is going to be going on with the Bruins, especially with their lines, Pat Maroon. How's everything going between the goalie tandem? There's a lot to discuss there as well. Plus, the Celtics are playing tonight at 7:30 in just under a half hour. And they have a lot going on with them as well. It's not a lot on the court because, let's face it, they're kicking everybody's ass on the court. But Derek White's playing out of his mind. LeBron had a few things about Jason Tatum that I want to talk about. But first and foremost, I got to kick off with the New England Patriots and the Dynasty. The Dynasty has finally completed all 10 episodes. And can I just say, thank you, God, that it is over, because it was long, it was arduous, and it got to a point where I was done almost from episode 1. I wanted to give it, kind of a break, kind of let everything flesh itself out, so I could see and, not just judge it right off the bat. But then after episodes 3 and 4, I knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into. And that was a complete Bill Belichick hit piece. And for episodes 9 and 10, which started off very interestingly, because they kicked off episode 9 showing the Trump rally in New Hampshire, talking about Bill Belichick's letter to Trump and Trump reading it. I'll give it verbatim from Bill Belichick. And then it kicked off into 2017. And that's the fall of 2017 was a wild time, because you have that letter and and they're discussing the fact that, well, it threw everybody off because here is, Trump, and, we're not supposed to be talking about anything outside of the team. Like, right? That was the sole focus, that everything had to be about the team. And here's Bill writing a letter to Trump and then allowing Trump to read it at his rallies. Now, you could argue that you hope that it would have stayed within that rally, that, I don't know, maybe the cameras weren't there, or that, it wasn't going to blow up the way that it did. But, inevitably, of course, it did, because that's what goes on. That's who Trump is and Trump was. Like, it just blew up. The mainstream media took a hold of that and just went to town on it. And of course, the players, seemingly were a little pissed. And, even Belichick didn't elaborate on that, obviously, when he got a chance to speak about it. But Devin McCourty had a few interesting points when it came to that, because he was the one talking about that story, talking about how the team was pissed about Trump's letter. And he lumped Brady, Belichick, and Kraft as all being friends with Donald Trump. And to that, I will say, good for them, at least for Belichick and probably Kraft's part, because regardless of what you think of Trump and, going right or going left, whatever the case may be, like, I don't care. Like, I'm not here to talk politics. What I am here to talk about is they were friends with Trump long before he ever thought about running for office. So the fact that they were able to sit there and just, throw support behind this guy that they're loyal to, again, to me, that speaks loyalty. I don't care, like I said, right, left, whatever you may think, but there's something to be said about loyalty. Okay. They probably called him up and said, hey, you might not want to go this, that, or, whichever, right, for the NFL and for their purposes. But it was interesting to see that was like the one piece, I think, in episode 9 where all three got called out, and it wasn't just solely Bill Belichick and solely a hit piece on Bill, because McCourty's not wrong. Brady's been friends with Trump for a long time up until that point. Belichick has his relationship with Trump. Kraft definitely has his relationship with Trump. So I thought that was a little interesting, and not to say that it was nice, but it was good to see that, hey, Belichick isn't the only one getting called out for that, right? It was everybody. But just the other thing, kind of going with that season, going with 2017 and the kneeling and everything, it just, yes, that definitely was prevalent in terms of the politics. But that's what I think myself and a lot of fans disliked especially about that season, was how politics took over sports. And listen, these guys have their own opinions. I get it. I don't want to sit there and blame them, because I don't know them. I don't talk with them. I don't express, my views. They don't express their views. And you know what? That's fine, because the general population goes to sporting events to escape politics. They do. And the funny part about that was the kneeling against Houston in 2017. Now, I flew up from Florida to go to that game. So I was at that game. Brandon Cooks caught the game-winning touchdown in the final seconds against Houston in Foxborough with my dad. And the funny part about it was when Devin McCourty goes on to talk about all the boos that the fans were throwing on the players because they were kneeling. At least some were, not all, but some were. I wasn't one of them. And I'm not trying to sit there and say, oh, look at me, I wasn't booing. No, I didn't boo. I might not agree with it, but I didn't boo because I knew, and this is what I said to my father, literally 5-10 minutes from now, every single person in this stadium is going to be cheering for those same players. So what are we doing? It felt very hypocritical, to sit there and boo, knowing full well that we're going to be cheering, 5 minutes from that. So that's why I just kind of sat back and let it happen. Cause I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to get out of this? What are they going to get out of this? And Devin McCourty, I thought, had an interesting quote from that, saying, quote, "This is what we think most of our Patriots fans feel. Then they don't know us as players." He goes on to say, "Those men they come and cheer for, jerseys they buy, they don't know us." Devin, I hate to break it to you, but you're 100% correct, buddy. Like, we don't know you. As fans, we don't know you, especially in that environment, in that regime that was the New England Patriots, the Patriot Dynasty. The only guys who would ever really talk were Bill and Tom. Of course, some of the other guys might get the locker room presser or whatever. Like it wasn't a big deal. The big press conferences went to Bill and Tom. So yes, you are right. We don't know you as players. And I'm not trying to sit here and, bash you for it because you're 100% correct. But it's one of those things where, again, at the end of the day, you have a voice. I get it. And I fully support you having a voice and having your time to speak. Unfortunately, you're putting it in a situation that a lot of people are trying to escape. Like, that's the reason people go to games. You know what? I could be wrong or, I could be right. Regardless of what you think, that was the toughest part, I think, of the whole series was trying to, figure out that. Now, again, that's for me. And I'm not going to sit here and, like I said, I'm not telling you which side I lean on or any of that. Because to me, this is a sports show. I couldn't care less about politics. I couldn't care less getting into that conversation. But when it's brought up, when it's thrown in my face, yeah, you know what? Some I have to talk about it a little bit. And that's what started the show, basically. It started the show with a little bit and then cut to it midway through episode 9. But that was really a very interesting facet, which definitely took place because it was an interesting topic going around the locker room because that was Trump's first year in office. He got elected the year prior and inducted in January of 2017. So I thought that was interesting, but really the story from episode 9, I thought did an okay job talking about Alex Guerrero and Bill Belichick's clash against one another, because they didn't talk about Alex's checkered past. The only thing that they brought up was Skip Bayless, of all friggin' people. Skip Bayless was the one to talk about Alex Guerrero's checkered past, and all he said was, "Oh well, he got called out, for impersonating a doctor, and this, that." Like he barely gave enough information as to what really Alex Guerrero was up to prior to his meeting with Tom Brady, and then those two just taking it off, right? So I'm here to do that for you. Alex Guerrero's checkered past is absolutely checkered. He was sanctioned by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, for falsely presenting himself as a doctor. Now, he said in infomercials that he could cure AIDS, cure cancer, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, etc. A lot of those types of diseases because he went to a Chinese holistic university in California. And so the supplement that he developed was called Supreme Greens that could cure all those diseases if you follow his dietary. Now, in case you don't know, the dietary world is very relaxed in its regulations. Like you could throw a lot of stuff and call it, a diet pill, and certain things won't get as checked as if you called it a drug or something like that. So Alex Guerrero was sued twice for allegedly defrauding investors on his health businesses, and had a quote from the Boston Globe. They said, "A long history of financial troubles, bankruptcies, and legal entitlements." So when you know that going into it, and Tom Brady's building himself up, he's becoming, a powerful figure in the NFL, becoming the greatest quarterback in league history. And this is the guy that is training him and putting him through this regiment. it's great. Don't get me wrong. He healed Brady. Apparently, Brady was dealing with elbow issues around the late 2000s, and Alex Guerrero was working with him, and it healed him perfectly. Perfectly. Which, phenomenal. Great. Stick with it. But one of the biggest issues that didn't get brought up, which, shocker, was the fact that Alex Guerrero and Tom Brady were pushing players, were pushing guys to go this far, to go into his type of training, which wasn't necessarily strength training. It was a lot of band work and a lot of stretching. Brady learning how to fall and fall correctly, which is why he lasted so long when you have 300-pound guys falling on top of him, and it wasn't a pass interference call back then, which is the right call, by the way, but still. And so that's why he got his access revoked by Belichick. And I didn't like that Brady, kind of sounded whiny about it, saying that he healed me, guys. Like, obviously it works. Like what the F are we doing here? Like, Tom, you're a quarterback. If you try to put, some of these other guys, your offensive line, Gronk, and I'll get to Gronk in just a second, but if you put some of these other bigger dudes that need to play rough, tough, and physical on the regiment, at least workout regiment you're going for, dude, you're going to get your ass sacked a million times over because you have the defensive line who are buffing themselves up. So that's where everything kind of went into question. And that's why, Belichick has a strength and conditioning coach. He has a strength and conditioning team that he brought in, that he knows. And when you have guys like Rob Gronkowski going into their workout saying, nah, I'm not doing squats today because of his work with Alex Guerrero, that's raising a lot of red flags. If Brady wanted to keep Guerrero to himself and, that's how it went, fine. Then he probably would have stayed. But once he started recruiting other guys, and to Gronk's credit, like Tom, Guerrero helped Gronk. He healed him. But in case you don't remember, Gronk looked skinny as the years went on. So after that 2016, that Falcons Super Bowl, Gronk looked thinner and thinner and thinner. And I want to say it was his first or second year with Tampa where he looked like he was buff again. He looked like the guy that we saw in 2014, against Seattle that year. But that's why that situation, and I agreed with Bill at the time, and I still agree with Bill. I saw the weight room firsthand, and I've seen two different worlds of that. I saw the guys that were trying to go for a quote-unquote functional strength, and I saw the guys that were trying to go for, I'm going to build you up, I'm going to give you a six-pack even though you're 350 pounds. We are going to work and work and work. That's what you need. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some benefits to what Guerrero did, 100%. But you also have to understand the position. You also have to understand the amount of hits that each single player takes. And for Guerrero, I don't think he understood that. For Tom, he doesn't take that many hits, understandably so. But for every other guy, even the offensive line, those guys get hit every single play. So that's why I was in favor of that. And don't forget, just because he lost access, he only lost access due to the fact that Tom now has to work out with Guerrero on his own time. So they didn't ban Guerrero completely. Tom just had to go work with Guerrero on Tom's own time. And the funny part was Jimmy Garoppolo, which they didn't bring up, obviously, tried to go to Guerrero to try to work with him. And the doors were locked. So you wonder how You wonder how that went, right? But then, of course, the other little note too was that Kraft telling Belichick that Tom will never be traded. Saying that, oh, I never told Bill that he had to trade Jimmy G. I just told him that Tom would never be traded. In other words, you're trading Jimmy, right? Like, that was so stupid. I couldn't stand that. Another funny part, Gronk saying that his asshole was super tight, and when you walked in the door, like, that was, to me, absolutely hilarious. But the climax of episode 9 was Super Bowl 52. No Malcolm Butler. And to this day, no one truly knows what happened with Malcolm Butler, except for the fact that Kraft might have alluded to something a little more, meaning that Kraft said something personal was going on between Bill and Malcolm. Right? Because that had to be it. That had to be it. If it was Malcolm punched Matt Patricia, everybody would have heard about it. If it was Malcolm and Steve Belichick getting into a screaming match, that would have been talked about ad nauseum. But the fact that he didn't play the whole game, he left after that season with some of the teammates on the pad saying, go be free. And then 3 years later, he re-signs with the Patriots. Don't you think that if Malcolm was dead to Bill, it would have never even happened? Malcolm would have never stepped foot in this building ever again? Because I think that absolutely would have happened. So the fact that Bill re-signed him tells me that it was something stupid, that Bill realized, okay, maybe I went overboard in that Super Bowl. And the fact that, he held them out of that game and bothers me because, yeah, I will 100% blame Belichick for it. Now, it was kind of ironic that McDaniels was sitting there saying, it's going to come down to the team that has the ball last. Well, it was kind of us that had the ball last. And in case, Josh, you blocked it out, Tom Brady got strip sacked. So, yeah, it was not a fun one. I remember watching that game and not being too happy about it that night and the next day. So it definitely was on Bill. And see, this is why I have a problem with the show. And I'll say it again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Because Belichick was the guy. He was the architect of the dynasty in the early days. So to make the whole show about this hit piece and putting every single blame on Bill, no matter what, that's where I draw the line. Because now we're in a stage, yes, Super Bowl 52, Bill Belichick is absolutely 100% at fault here. Then you have Tom Brady in that whole situation. You let him walk. Yes, Bill Belichick is one of the biggest reasons why that Brady walked, if not the only reason why he walked. So now's the time to get into it, right? Now's the time to parade Belichick with all of that. But they didn't. They did it from the beginning. That's why it bothers me. Now, Danny Amendola, he had that great comment, taking the Johnny Foxborough and flipping it on Bill's head, saying that, well, I could have got Johnny Foxborough to tell you to not let Tom Brady walk. True. Absolutely true. But again, no quarterback has ever done what Tom Brady has done in his 40s alone, right? Every quarterback by their mid-30s up until prior to Tom Brady, with the exception of a handful, has never done what Tom Brady has done. That's why, Bill was adamant about, hey, here are some things that Brady's not doing so well right now. Here's why we have to get ready to move on. And they should have. They could have. But they never did. And they were ready to a Jimmy G, but they were stupid and idiotic about it. I did kind of like, the conversation about Tom leaving in the summer. He went over to Kraft's house. They got Bill on the phone. It sounded emotional. And I like that because it just goes to show that, again, they all have feelings. They all love each other. And then to show some love to Bill, saying how Super Bowl 53 against the Rams, Bill, we played a man-to-man scheme all season just to spend those 2 weeks flipping it to a zone scheme and throwing everybody off, throwing the Rams off, which they did, hence giving up only 3 points. Now, obviously, there were a couple of times that Jared Goff almost had it, especially that Cooks in the back of the end zone. That was scary. One right there. But Jason McCourty coming up with a great play. There was so much, that they could have done. And I'm glad it's over. Probably not going to ever watch it again. If I want to do that, I'll probably watch, Man in the Arena with Brady if I really want to break it down. But they spend, again, I think, a lot of extra time with, the family members, with the reporters, which, while some were, I think, more prevalent than others in terms of the reporters, right? They gave them way too much screen time. And the reason, and I knew that from the beginning. And what bothers me is, of course, now players, with it all being done, are coming out in disgust of the dynasty, in disgust of how Belichick was portrayed. And they're coming to his defense. It's like, thank you. At least, I'm not the crazy one, right? Because I saw what was going on. I knew about it, and granted, I was, up in Wilmington, Mass during all of this. But I knew that Belichick was not this way. Belichick was not this bad. And one of the things that got me was I saw on Twitter, or X. I always call it Twitter, but it's to me, it's both. It's like Twitter and X. About Rodney Harrison talking with Devin McCourty. And this was unbelievable because Rodney Harrison is saying how they didn't tell the stories, of Rodney coming. They didn't tell the stories of Corey Dillon coming. Rodney had to spend 5 to 6 hours in New York just doing these interviews, only for them to say, now, those of you with small children in the area, you might want to get them out of the room or cover their ears. But Rodney Harrison's only line in the entire Dynasty 10-part series was, fuck them all. Fuck them all. That was it. For spending 5 to 6 hours talking about the stories of how Rodney was doing in San Diego, then how he came, Belichick wanted to give him a chance. And that's it? That's all that he got to say? Just unbelievable. Rodney goes on. He says he gave him a chance, gave Brady a chance. He sat a $100 million quarterback in favor of Brady. Again, a lot of people don't remember. They kept 4 quarterbacks in Brady's rookie season. 4. Show me a team that has kept 4 quarterbacks since 2001. Actually, 2000. It's super rare, if at all, right? So that's why, to me, yeah, Belichick saw something in Brady. Belichick is the architect of this, people. And to have him be bashed the way he was, Rodney, when someone is done and doesn't get another shot, Bill brought them in 100%, 100%. And Devin, during that elaborated. He elaborated in saying that he felt duped. The only thing that came across, obviously, was Bill and the negativity. And obviously, the whole Trump thing was a massive piece of that. But Devin goes on to say he could have left twice. He could have left twice. You had a whole changing of the guard in 2010. And yet, this is what we got. This is all they did. Devin also goes on to say that Bill was one of the biggest reasons why a guy got released after 28 years in prison after being falsely accused. So Bill isn't this cold guy. Is he calculated? 100%. But when the man's been in the league for 40 years up until the point of Brady in his late 30s, he's seen it all. So I'm not surprised. He tried to, plan ahead and plan for Brady's demise. I mean, hell, Belichick probably watched too much of Max Kellerman to say he's going to fall off a cliff. He's going to fall off a cliff. He's going to fall off a cliff every single year. And then Brady goes to the AFC Championship and then the Super Bowl. Literally, one of my favorite phrases was the Patriots play 2 games a year, the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl. It was almost a foregone conclusion at the start of every season. So, yeah, maybe Belichick learned too much from Max Kellerman in the mid-2010s there to plan ahead, right? And Rob Gronkowski, went on the Eye of Foxborough podcast, and he had some interesting comments when talking about Belichick. He goes on to say, quote, "It was very sad to see Coach Belichick go because they wouldn't have been a dynasty. There wouldn't have been 20 plus years of a winning culture in New England without Coach Belichick. He set the standard. Coach Belichick was the standard." Goes on to talk about, despite any friction he may have had, and just, this isn't him saying it, but despite any friction they may have had with Belichick, Gronk wouldn't change a thing. He goes on to say, quote, "I kind of needed the structure as well in my life. I wouldn't be where I am right now to this day without Coach Belichick being tough on myself and helping me to get to the next level at practice or in a game. So I would never, ever, ever change a thing." Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's bothersome to me. It's absolutely bothersome to me that they're trying to paint Belichick as this idiot, who kept going down the wrong path every single chance that he got. They don't want to tell you why he was the architect, how good he was at building this culture, building this dynasty. But, and again, did he have his faults? Of course he did. Spygate. I'm not going to give him for Deflategate. But I will say this. Was his drafting perfect? Absolutely not. Wasn't even close. And he hated wide receivers. Hated them. And it bothered me. Because imagine how much faster Belichick could have gotten to Shula's record had he drafted a diva wide receiver that was elite. Every single chance he could have done it, he always refused to. And we have Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. Go check that. If you guys haven't checked out Carving It Up with Bryson, go check it out. It's a great show, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. Bryson says, "Haven't seen the doc, but while I think Belichick didn't evolve to the modern NFL that well, the fact that former players are taking up for him like this says a lot about those relationships." And then he goes, "By the way, shout out to 8 o'clock spot." That's right. Yeah, let's go. 8 o'clock spot last night. If you haven't caught it, go on to the Grid Network's YouTube channel, 8 o'clock spot every Tuesday at 8. But yeah, so Bryson, I will say this. Even current players love him. Kendrick Bourne, there's plenty of the current guys who spent the last 4 years with Bill who love him. So it's interesting because, yes, he is that hard-ass style. He is that old school. I don't care how good. If you're this good or you're this good, you are going to be dealt the exact same way. And a lot of these players want to be treated like these players. And it's good and bad because while they, should have some special treatment, they shouldn't have a lot of special treatment. They still should be called out on their BS. And one of the original guys from the first part of the Dynasty, Damian Woody, went on the Pat McAfee show last week. And I just want to read you what he said at the very end of it, which was, quote, "We can't be shitting on the guy that was the architect behind this whole dynasty, and it doesn't sit right with me. I can tell you that," end quote. Like, that's exactly what it is. The whole thing was just a hit piece on Bill. And while at the end of it was 100% justified to be a hit piece for Super Bowl 52, no one really knowing what happened with Malcolm Butler, to letting Brady walk. 100% justifiable right there. Spygate as well. But at the end of the day, it was average at best. And I thought did a real poor job on talking about what the dynasty actually was. So now that the dynasty is over, it is on to draft talk. And we'll start picking up more of the draft with the Patriots in the coming weeks because obviously the draft is going to be at the end of April. And they have a lot going on. A report just came out saying that the Patriots are pretty much steadfast sticking at number 3. And to that, I am scared. I am weary because I believe that this is not going to be a fast rebuild. You're not going to take a rookie quarterback at 3 and expect him to win you 8-9 games, let alone double digits. This roster is not strong enough to handle that. This offense is not strong enough to handle that. So there's going to be more draft talk. I have a weekly mock draft that I do every Thursday. So check out my X account. I always want to call it Twitter. My X account, Boss Sports Summit, right there for every single Thursday. My new mock draft. I'm always going to try to change it up. There's some guys that I love, but I think there's a lot of good players out there and a lot of guys the Patriots desperately need, especially moving back in the draft to acquire more draft capital. But going on to a team that is absolutely just dominating the NBA right now, it is the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are absolutely killing it. They have won, what was it? Celtics have won like 6 of the last 7 games. Just absolutely on fire. They just destroyed the Detroit Pistons without a lot of their key guys. And they beat them 119-94, including Derek White's first triple-double of his career. So congrats, Derek, on earning that awesome honor to earn a triple-double, especially at the guard position, getting, I think, 26 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Like, that's huge. But as much as I love Derek White, my thought was, how good has he really been? Because I feel like Derek White is like the main cog that runs the offense. Now, that's a good thing because it's not that Tatum can't run the offense or Jalen can't run the offense, but sometimes you need that piece, right? Like Rajon Rondo for that '08 Celtics ran the offense. Of course, it was Pierce, Garnett, and Allen that were the superstars of the team. But Derek White, I'm like, this guy's always there. He's always, just being an instrumental piece. And so how good has he been? Well, I got a few stats to show you because Derek White leads the NBA in net rating at plus 13.9. He leads the NBA in offensive rating with the Celtics, scoring 122.8 points per 100 possessions during his 2,041 minutes of floor time. That's pretty good. White also is a plus 595 this season, which gives him a healthy lead in terms of plus minus rating over MVP candidates such as SGA, who's got a plus 544, Nikola Jokic at plus 518, and the fake dunker himself, Anthony Edwards. Yes, that dunk last week was not a dunk, folks. He threw the ball. But he has a plus 443. And yet, Derek White's plus 595. Kind of good. Derek White also has 81 blocks this season, which is easily the best among players who are 6'7" and under. Can you guess how much the number 2 player has in that category? Who's under 6'7" or 6'7" and under? It's Alex Caruso with 64. So Derek White has 17 more blocks this season for any single player, for the second place player who are 6'7" and under. Like, it's crazy. 81 to 64. Kind of a gap. And then White is also averaging a career best 15.2 points per game, shooting 46.4% from the floor, 40% from three, and shooting 89.9% at the line. The dude is like Mr. Reliable. Like, compared to everybody else on that roster, Derek White has grown up tremendously. And what us getting him from San Antonio, I don't care who we gave up. That was a friggin' steal. To get this guy, he has been absolutely crushing it. Absolutely crushing it this season. And I would argue is on most nights our third best player, if not flirting between that second best player, depending on how one of the Jays do. Or if one of them sucks or both suck and Porzingis kills it. Like, Derek White is, in my opinion, the third best player on the starting lineup, hands down, bar none. And that is, yes, over Porzingis, over Drew Holiday. Like, he has been the most consistent, best player on the floor, period. And you know what? I am glad, because I thought trading Marcus Smart was because I wanted the Jays, Jalen and Jason, to evolve and take over this team and be the leaders of this team. When what has truly gone on is Derek White has been given that role. Derek White has become a player I did not see coming. I thought Derek White was going to be like this decent, sixth guy or the fifth guy of the starting five. Like, that's what I thought Derek White was going to be. But what he's done this season, he's been unbelievable. Including, I'm going to date back to last season, that Game 6 putback. That's all up here, baby. That's all up here. So, love Derek White. Absolutely one of my favorite players on the Celtics so far. one of the other things I want to talk to about the Celtics was what's going on with LeBron James. So, in case you didn't know, LeBron has started up a podcast between him and JJ Redick. And what LeBron talked about in their first episode was, are the expectations of Jason Tatum unfair? Now, I don't know if the question was phrased like that, but he does go on to say, quote, you look at Tatum, he's 25. He's been to Eastern Conference Final 4 times and the Finals once. He talks about how himself, MJ, Jokic, we're all older. We're all 27, 28. And he thinks that there's a lot of expectations on Tatum, but it's elite. And so I saw that, and I immediately took exception to it for two things. Number one, it's LeBron James. So anytime LeBron James talks about the Celtics, I'm always kind of like, skeptical of it. And the fact that he's talking about the Jason Tatum and saying that there's too high of expectations for Tatum or something to that, he's alluding to the expectations being very high for this guy, even though he's been to 4 Eastern Conference Finals and 1 NBA Finals. And I just sit there and I go, why are we trying to not – sorry, I have this thought, but my problem is, why are we trying to lessen expectations for guys that we're giving $300+ million to? Why are we trying to lessen expectations for players who say they are the best player in the world, in the game, in the world? Why are we trying to lessen expectations for a guy who wants to be the face of the NBA? And that comes with winning championships. And I'm not saying Jason feels this way. He might, because I feel like a lot of current superstars want all the money, all the glory, but then when they don't win, they get mad at the fans for putting all that expectation on them. So that's why I get a little heated over that. Because these modern day players are acting soft. Like the fact that Jaylen Brown is the highest paid NBA player is outright asinine. Jaylen Brown's talent is probably somewhere in the 20s of all NBA players. High teens, 20s. Like, Jaylen Brown is the highest paid NBA player in the league. And it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And Tatum has gone on to talk about how he wants to be the guy. He wants this. He wants that. He wants the glory. He wants, to be like Kobe. Then win. And that's not me yelling at him, but it's just like, okay, great. Then do it. I want you to be the guy. I want you to be the face of the league. I want you wearing Celtic green your whole career. But if you wear your Celtic green your whole career and you don't win, then I don't know if you'll ever be the face of the league. I don't know if you'll ever do that. It's crazy to me. Don't forget, Boston Sports Summit merch. Sorry for the blur. There you go. Boston Sports Summit merch. Link in the description below. But overall, it is kind of crazy to me that it seems like LeBron is trying to give Tatum an out, trying to give Tatum a pass because LeBron wants to be buddies with Tatum. And this is the other thing that I have with modern day players. You can be friends off the court all you want, fine. But when you get on the court, you should hate him with all your guts. And that's why I loved Pierce and LeBron, because Pierce versus LeBron was a true rivalry. Pierce hated LeBron. and LeBron hated Pierce. Like that was fun. Oh, excuse me. That's what I want as a fan. That's what makes it that much more entertaining, and it brings the casual fan in even more. So it's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying that we're in the situation that we're in because of, stuff like that. Everybody's got to be friends. Everybody's got to be friends with everybody. And some of the ways to do it is to say, hey, man, those fans in Boston, they expect way too much out of you. Look at all you've done for them. Look at how you've gone to 4 Eastern Conference Finals and won NBA Finals. Like, you've gotten so far, so young, and yet they aren't satisfied. And if Tatum buys that crap, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does, it's sad. It's tragic because Tatum should look at LeBron in his face after he says that and tells him to go do what, because he's coming for that title. He wants that title. That title means more to him than anything else, which I don't think it does, but that's the point that I'm trying to make. So it is what it is. It's the new NBA. It's 100% the new NBA. Now, going over to one team from at the top of their game in the Celtics, going to another team that's at the top of their game in the Bruins. The Bruins have regained pole position for the President's Trophy, which I don't want it. I don't want it. I've seen them win the President's Trophy, 2 times? 3 times? Well, 3 times technically if you include the real 2019-2020 season that got cut during COVID. When it got cut, the Bruins had pole position, and the Bruins hung a banner that says 2020 President's Trophy winners, even though they didn't win the cup that year. But they're back in pole position, and you have this whole thing with the goaltenders. Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman, which I'm sitting there going, I wanted to get rid of Ullmark because I wanted Swayman to be the guy, and I need to see if I want to give him a top goalie contract, then I need to see what he can do, including be the guy, the one that is the workhorse all through the playoffs. That's what you need. The hugging thing is cool. The hugging thing is nice, but only one goalie can play at a time. So why are you going to have 2 top-tier goalies, right? Well, of course, the trade deadline was March 8th. And so March 9th, I wanted to see how both were doing because Ullmark has been on, Swayman has sucked. And if you go back a little further, the only time Swayman's actually been good was against the Leafs. Go figure. The highest, one of those high-octane offenses. And Swayman has held his own against them. But when he goes against everybody else, he's a puddle. And so since March 9th, the day after the post-trade deadline, Ullmark has played in 3 games. He's allowed 1.34 goals against average and has a .956 save percentage. Swayman, on the other hand, has played in 2 games and has a .453 goals against average while having a save percentage of .820. And so tell me, who do you think deserves to be the guy in the playoffs right now if they started tomorrow? It's obviously Ullmark. It is obviously Ullmark. And the funny thing is, he was the guy last year, but he was hurt, and they refused to platoon. Now, Are they going to platoon? If both guys are healthy, are they going to platoon? Because Ullmark's got game one as it currently stands. So why would you put Swayman in for game two? If this is his stat line going into that, I am petrified. I am nervous because this isn't good. You can't have your goalie that, oh, by the way, right before, I'm pretty sure it's right before the trade deadline, there was a little leak that came out saying how Swayman is looking for a massive contract, an 8-year, $7 million a year contract. And at the time, if we got rid of Ullmark, I was all for it. I was like, there we go. Give it to me, because salary cap's going up in a couple of years. If Swayman does well, then that contract's going to look cheap, in a handful of years. Now, I'm looking at it going, they ain't signing him to a $7 million deal. He turtled. Ullmark took the whole trade thing and him almost getting shipped out of here to flip the switch and turn it on. While Swayman, maybe his camp leaked it out. Maybe somehow, some way it got out, whether it's from the Bruins, which I doubt, or Swayman's side. And yet, excuse me, and yet he's turtling now? Huh. That's kind of funny and kind of interesting, don't you think? But one of the brighter notes of it all is Justin Brazeau. This kid who's 26 years old, he has been fighting and fighting and fighting for a roster spot in the NHL. And now he has one and has been absolutely crushing it. He debuted on February 19th. He's played in 13 games so far. He scored twice last night. But one of the biggest reasons why I like him is he's 6'5", he's 220, he's a big body, and the Bruins are desperate for size and physicality, hence going out and trading for Pat Maroon. But as it stands, since February 19th, he's got 27 hits, which is third most among Bruins forwards during the last month, as well as 3.66 blocked shots per 60 minutes, which again ranks third among Bruins forwards during that same span. And Jim Montgomery, during training camp, called him a poor man's Dave Anderchuk. And in case you don't know, Dave Anderchuk was a net front presence who has scored 648 goals in his 23-year career. He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame since 2017. He's in the Tampa Bay Hall of Fame. So Dave Anderchuk is a high praise. Well, a poor man's Dave Anderchuk, but it's just a great story. It's a great story to get behind, but it leaves Boston with some question marks. Because if you're going to keep him up here for the playoffs, then who are you going to send down? Are you going to send down Johnny Beecher, who looks like a man possessed, and you're in desperate need of a center position, especially for your bottom six, if not your fourth line? Or you're going to send down Lauko, who is a speed demon, who can get around, who's very smart with the puck. So there's a lot going on with that, and the playoffs are literally less than a month away for the Bees. They are less than a month away. I think they have like 15 games remaining, 14 games remaining, something like that. So it's coming here real quick. And I know it's like, I want them to be the top seed, but I feel like getting the top seed in the Atlantic Division is going to equal to winning the President's Trophy. And if that's the case, give it to the Panthers. Give it to the Panthers, because I don't want it. With what has gone on, I've seen this story play out too many times. First time we won it in 2014, we lost to the second round to the Canadians, which pissed me off a PK Subban's goal. In 2020, obviously, we lost in the second round to the Lightning. And then last season, we won it going away, and we lost in the first round of the Panthers. So you know what? Give that curse to Florida. I don't want it. I want nothing to do with it. And it's crazy. The only way you can convince me to take the President's Trophy is to tell me that they will win the cup. That if the Bruins win the President's Trophy, then they will win Lord Stanley's Cup. And I need to see like definitive proof of that before I can say I want this. Because besides all of that, keep it as far away from me as possible. Now, moving on to a team that keeps pissing me off because their owner doesn't want to invest. They are trying to build up their core, and yet their farm system sucks. So, like, there's so much wrong with this team. But there has been some good recently. Like I said last week, Brian Bayo signed a 6-year, $55 million deal with a 7th-year club option for $21 million. And Brian Bayo just kept getting good news over this past week because he got the opening day nod for the Red Sox, which is going to begin on the 28th. So a week from tomorrow, the Red Sox are going to be playing opening day, and it's going to be in Seattle. And Brian Bayo is going to be the starting pitcher, in which I'm like, you know what? Good. Let's give this young buck a shot. He's looked pretty good over the last year and a half. Has, a lot of ups and definitely some downs and some major downs. But I like him. I'm excited for this kid. And it's funny because he is the first homegrown player since Clay Buchholz to get the opening day nod, which happened in 2015. So 9 years ago, it's been since a homegrown Red Sox player got the opening day nod. And he is the youngest. Brian Bayo is the youngest opening day starter at 24 since 1995 in Aaron Selly. So I'm excited. I'm happy for Brian Bayo. As much as this team still pisses me off, and as much as I want the Red Sox to lose and lose badly this season, it's not because I hate the Red Sox. No, it's because I hate John Henry and I hate that ownership group for not spending a freaking dime and being the kings of teams that are interested. And I want to say that I got an interesting comment talking about on my, ownership group and them hating, them hating us as fans, not wanting to invest in the team. And they were trying to defend the ownership group, to which I'm only going to respond with, show me out of the last 4 years. Hell, show me out of the last 5 years, going back to 2019 and them trading Mookie Betts. Show me how this ownership has actually wanted to invest in this team, and I will agree with you that John Henry is trying to do right by this team. I guarantee you everything that you're going to throw at me is going to be garbage. 100% garbage. So please, if you want to try to come at me for saying that I am wrong and that all the people who are calling out the Red Sox and their ownership are wrong for saying that they don't want to invest, it's because it's true. All right? And I will say that time and time again until proven otherwise. If you can prove to me that not signing Shohei Ohtani and signing the 25-year-old Japanese pitcher from Japan was the wrong move. Now, I'm not going to talk about Shohei Ohtani and his translator and then firing him because of gambling. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just the player. That's all I want, the player. if that's the case, if telling me that that's wrong to not sign them, then I'm sorry, there's no hope for you. But the one thing I do want to talk about off of that, well, it's not off of that, but it's 2024. The Red Sox broke an 86-year curse in October of this year, 20 years ago. So they are going to be honoring the entire 2004 Red Sox. If I can put two words together, the Boston Red Sox are going to be honoring the 2004 team that broke the 86-year curse of the Bambino, as well as honoring Tim Wakefield and his wife Stacy, who both tragically passed away. Tim from brain cancer in October, and Stacy from a different form of cancer in February. And if I haven't said it, I truly mean this. My heart goes out to the Wakefield family and just how much fun it was watching Tim pitch in the Red Sox uniform, because he was such a stand-up guy. He was a team-first guy, would do anything for the team, and he was so much fun to watch. Watching the 04, ALCS back, and watching, I want to say it was Game 5, where they went deep into extras, and Tim Wakefield had to pitch an inning, and Tech was losing the ball left and right. And yet he struck out Ruben Sierra. Tech caught the ball and threw it back. And to watch Tim Wakefield come off the mound with a big, fist bump, like, it was so much fun. And then in 07, when they won, he literally put team over self by saying that he's going to take himself off the roster in order to make room. I forget off the top of my head, but that's the type of guy that he was. He took himself off the roster for the World Series. He took himself out. And my heart goes out to the Wakefield family. You're in my thoughts, my prayers. It's tragic. And I'm so happy that the Red Sox are not only honoring the 04 champions, which Tim was a part of, but also they're honoring him and his wife as well, as they should. And the reason why this is kind of a big story right now is due to the fact that Curt Schilling talked about how he's not going to attend. And I want to be, sad about that, but I understand, especially not because of his political affiliations, not because of any of that nonsense, like him in the media, like, spare me. The man pitched in a bloody friggin' sock. He had surgery in Game 6 and was lights out in Yankee Stadium. You will never see a performance like that ever again. And, here is Curt Schilling. He leaked the news. I think one of the biggest, if not the reason why he's not going to be there, is because he leaked the news about Tim and his wife, which pissed a lot of his former teammates off, and probably pissed off the Wakefields, for letting that story be out prior to them wanting it to be released. So I get why he doesn't want to be there, or why he won't be there. He's gotten a lot of, flack for his business dealings, for his political affiliations since 2004. And if that was going to be the only reason, then yeah, I would be like, dude, you need to be there. He was this patch, wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Curt Schilling in Game 6 of the ALCS pitching in that bloody sock. And yes, that was not ketchup. That was blood. So that patch wouldn't be possible without Curt Schilling, which is why I would have wanted him there if it wasn't for the whole leaking of the Wakefield situation that unfortunately took Tim and his wife Stacy's life. So I understand why he won't be there, but it still should be a fun but somber day, obviously, when you're going to be celebrating the 2004 World Series champions, the team that broke the curse, to then honoring Tim Wakefield and his wife Stacy at their home opener, which I think is April 8th, if I remember correctly. So that's going to be an interesting day. That 100% will be an interesting day for sure. But yeah, there is just a lot to be said, a lot to be talked about. Obviously, with next week and as the weeks go on, we are going to start diving in more to the NFL draft and what that's going to look like. Next week, I do want to make a point. Next week, which is Wednesday, March 27th, I will not be doing this show. I will be doing the show Thursday, March 28th. All right, so next week, I'm postponing by a day. Okay, so next Thursday, we're going to be talking a lot about what's going on, about just the NFL draft and the number 3 overall pick. Like I said, every Thursday I have a mock draft that I post on Twitter and Instagram. So if you haven't, check it out down below. Please, guys, if you already haven't, like, share, subscribe to the Boston Sports Summit on YouTube. Like and share, subscribe to Boss Sports Summit on Twitter or X. And then same thing with the Boston Sports Summit on Instagram, as well as don't forget, this show is always going to be exclusive on the Grid Network. All right. So make sure you like, share, subscribe to the Grid Network as well. That's where you get this show every single week, every single Wednesday, except next Wednesday. Okay. March 28th will be on Thursday, same time, 7 p.m., March 28th. Okay. So thank you guys so much for listening to the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnard, just a local guy, loves talking about his favorite teams. That's what this show is all about, Boston sports. So appreciate you listening, and I will see you all next Thursday, March 28th, 7 p.m. We're going live on the Grid Network YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next Thursday. God bless everyone.